In this video, we'll take you on an extraordinary journey of courage, isolation, and the unbreakable bond between a man and his dog. He set sail alone, chasing the dream of circumnavigating the globe, with no crew, no backup, and only his four-legged companion by his side. But the ocean is a ruthless teacher, and what started as an adventure quickly turned into a test of survival. What really happened out there? Was it a storm, a mechanical failure, or something no sailor can prepare for? Today we're diving deep into this gripping story, not just to tell you what went wrong, but to show the lessons every solo sailor must learn before heading into the unknown, from critical safety decisions to unexpected challenges that no manual ever warns you about. This video is more than a story. It's a wake-up call for anyone who dreams of sailing alone. So get ready for a tale of adventure, loyalty, and the raw power of nature. Stay with us until the end and ask yourself, if it were you out there, with only your dog to count on, what would you do differently? Don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit the bell icon so you never miss a true story from the sea. Let's begin. Jack Callahan stood on the dock in A Coruña, Spain, the salt air sharp in his lungs, as he surveyed the Horizon Chaser, his Beneteau Oceanus 45. The sleek 45-foot sloop gleamed under the late summer sun, its hull a deep navy blue, the deck teak polished to a warm glow. Jack ran a hand along the lifelines, checking their tension, his calloused fingers tracing the stainless steel cables. At his side, Luna, his 4-year-old golden retriever, sat patiently, her amber eyes fixed on him, tail thumping softly against the wooden planks. The marina buzzed with activity, sailors adjusting halyards, winches clanking, seagulls crying overhead. But for Jack, the world narrowed to the boat, the dog, and the open sea ahead. He was 45, a former naval officer turned solitary dreamer, and this was the moment he'd spent years preparing for. A solo circumnavigation of the globe, with only Luna for company. The Horizon Chaser was a vessel built for endurance. Its cutter rig featured a mainsail, genoa, and staysail, with a storm jib stowed below for heavy weather. The boat's 13.9-meter length and 4.5-meter beam offered stability, while the deep keel ensured it could handle the rolling swells of the Southern Ocean. Jack had outfitted it meticulously. A Simrad autopilot for long passages, a Furuno radar for fog and shipping lanes, an Iridium satellite phone for communication, and an EPIRB clipped to the transom in case of emergency. Below deck, the saloon was compact but functional, with a small galley, a navigation station, and a berth where Luna's bed was secured against the bulkhead. He'd trained her to use a patch of AstroTurf on the foredeck for her needs, and her life jacket, fitted with a lifting harness, hung neatly by the companionway. Jack knelt beside her, scratching behind her ears. "Ready for the adventure, girl?" Luna's tail wagged harder, her tongue lolling out in what he swore was a grin. The departure was set for dawn, September 1st, 2025. Time to catch the trade. Winds down the Atlantic and avoid the worst of the hurricane season. Jack's route would take him south to the Canary Islands, then west across the Atlantic to the Caribbean, through the Panama Canal, across the Pacific to New Zealand, around Australia's Cape Leeuwin, through the Indian Ocean, past South Africa's Cape of Good Hope, and finally around Cape Horn before the long haul back to A Coruña, a 26,000-mile journey. He'd studied the pilot charts, memorized weather patterns, and calculated provisions for 18 months, though he planned to stop at key ports for resupply. His food stores included freeze-dried meals, rice and canned goods with kibble and treats. For Luna, water tanks held 530 liters, supplemented by a desalinator. Every system had a backup, every tool a purpose. As the sun dipped below the horizon, Jack ran through his final checks. He tested the windlass, ensured the anchor chain was free of kinks, and inspected the rigging. The forestay and backstay were taut, the shrouds secure. He hoisted the mainsail briefly, checking the battens, then lowered it, satisfied. Luna followed him around the deck, her nails clicking softly, her presence a quiet reassurance. That night, he slept lightly in the berth. Luna curled at his feet, the gentle creak of the boat against the fenders lulling them both. Dawn broke clear, a light breeze rippling the water. Jack cast off the mooring lines, the diesel engine purring as he motored out of the harbor. Luna sat on the cockpit bench, ears perked, watching the receding shore. Once clear of the breakwater, Jack cut the engine, raised the mainsail, and unfurled the Genoa. The Horizon Chaser heeled slightly as the wind filled the sails, and he set a course of 210 degrees, aiming for the Canary Islands 600 miles south. The autopilot hummed to life, holding the boat steady at 6 knots. Jack clipped his harness to the Jacqueline and leaned back, feeling the rhythm of the sea. Luna nosed his hand and he smiled. Here we go. The first week was a dance of adaptation. Jack settled into a routine, checking the sails every few hours, logging his position via GPS, and scanning the horizon for ships. The wind held steady at 15 knots from the northeast, perfect for a broad reach. He trimmed the sails, adjusting the main sheet and Genoa cars to optimize the shape, keeping the telltales streaming evenly. Luna adjusted quickly, learning to brace herself against the boat's motion. She'd nap in the cockpit during the day, her life jacket snug, and at night, she'd curl up below, her steady breathing a counterpoint to the creak of the hull. Jack fed her twice daily, mixing kibble with water to keep her hydrated, and took her to the foredeck for her business runs, praising her each time she got it right. By day 10, the Canary Islands loomed on the horizon, their volcanic peaks. Sharp against the sky, Jack anchored off Las Palmas, restocking fresh water and fruit. Locals admired Luna, who wagged her tail at their attention, but stayed close to Jack. He spent 2 days checking the rigging, tightening a loose turnbuckle on the starboard shroud, and downloading updated weather files via the sat phone. The forecast showed a low-pressure system forming in the mid-Atlantic, so he plotted a course to skirt its edge, aiming for St. Lucia, 3,000 miles away. The Atlantic crossing tested Jack's skills. The trade winds pushed the Horizon Chaser at 7 knots, but squalls rolled through every few days, forcing him to reef the mainsail and switch to the staysail. One night, a rogue wave slammed the boat, heeling at 30 degrees. Jack scrambled to the cockpit, heart pounding, and eased the main sheet to spill wind. Luna, startled, barked once but stayed put in her bed, her trust in him unshaken. He checked the bilge, no water ingress, and reset the autopilot, cursing under his breath. The stars reappeared, Orion bright above, and he exhaled, stroking Luna's head. We're tougher than that, aren't we? Weeks blurred into a rhythm of sunrises, sail changes, and quiet moments. Jack read navigation books, plotted his course on paper charts as a backup to the GPS, and practiced celestial navigation with a sextant, measuring star angles to confirm his position. Luna became his sounding board, listening as he talked through calculations or muttered about the weather. Her presence kept loneliness at bay, her warmth a comfort during cold night watches. He'd play fetch with her on calm days, tossing a knotted rope across the deck, her joyful bounds making him laugh despite the fatigue. After 22 days, St. Lucia's green hills appeared. Jack cleared customs, restocked, and let Luna stretch her, legs on a sandy beach. The next leg, through the Panama Canal, was a logistical hurdle. He hired a line handler, navigated the locks with precision, and emerged into the Pacific, the vastness both thrilling and daunting. The Pacific crossing to the Marquesas was 4,000 miles of open water with steady 20-knot winds and rolling swells. Jack set the spinnaker for downwind runs, the colorful sail billowing like a giant kite. Luna seemed to sense the scale of the journey, her eyes scanning the horizon, as if she too understood the stakes. The Marquesas brought turquoise waters and a chance to rest. Jack anchored in a quiet bay, swam with Luna, and repaired a chafed halyard. The next leg to New Zealand meant crossing the South Pacific Gyre, a region of light winds and unpredictable currents. Jack relied on the engine to push through calms, conserving fuel and monitoring the batteries, charged by solar panels and a wind generator. Luna's routine held steady, though she grew restless in the heat, panting until Jack rigged a sunshade over the cockpit. New Zealand's fjords were a welcome sight after 30 days at sea. Jack docked in Auckland, where he overhauled the rigging, replaced a worn-out block, and treated Luna to a long walk in a park. The Southern Ocean loomed next, the most treacherous part of the journey. Jack studied weather models, waiting for a window between low-pressure systems. He reinforced the boat systems, double-checking the storm jib and drogue, and stocked extra food for both himself and Luna. The forecast gave him a 10-day window, and he set sail, course 140 degrees, toward Cape Leeuwin. The Southern Ocean was a beast. Winds roared at 30 knots, gusting to 40, and waves towered at 15 feet. Jack reefed the mainsail to the second point, keeping the staysail up for balance. The Horizon Chaser plowed through, spray drenching the deck. Luna stayed below, her bed wedged against the settee, but her eyes followed Jack as he moved. He clipped his harness to the jackline, never leaving the cockpit without it. The cold bit through his foul-weather gear, and he sipped hot coffee, the mug warming his hands. On day 5 in the Southern Ocean, disaster struck. A gust hit 50 knots, and a sickening snap echoed above the howl of the wind. Jack rushed to the east foredeck, his harness tether taut, and saw the forestay dangling, its lower fitting torn from the deck. The mast swayed dangerously, unsupported at the bow. Panic flared, but he forced it down. Luna barked from below, sensing his tension. Jack grabbed the spinnaker halyard, secured it to a bow cleat as a temporary stay, and tightened it with a winch, stabilizing the mast. The repair would take hours, and the storm wasn't letting up. He donned a climbing harness, clipped to the mast, and ascended using the bosun's chair, tools strapped to his belt. Waves crashed over the deck, soaking him, the cold numbing his fingers. He worked methodically, splicing a Dyneema line to reinforce the broken forestay, securing it with shackles. The mast groaned, but held. Luna's whines reached him from the companionway, her worry palpable. "I'm okay, girl," he called, though the wind stole his words. After 3 hours, the repair was solid enough to hold. Jack descended, exhausted, and collapsed in the cockpit, Luna licking his face as if checking he was still there. The storm passed, leaving a bruised sky and calmer seas. Jack reset the sails, his hands shaking from fatigue, and plotted a course for Cape Leeuwin. Luna curled up beside him, her warmth a lifeline. The Southern Ocean had tested them, but they'd survived. Jack looked at the stars, the mast standing tall, and felt a surge of pride. "We're doing this, Luna," he whispered. She thumped her tail, and the Horizon Chaser sailed on, carrying them toward the next horizon. The Horizon Chaser sliced through the Southern Ocean's swells, the temporary forestay repair holding firm under the strain of the mainsail and staysail. Jack Callahan, salt-crusted and weary, kept a vigilant eye on the rigging, his hands still raw from the climb up the mast. Luna, his golden retriever, lay in the cockpit, her life jacket snug, her eyes tracking his every move. The air was frigid, the wind a steady 25 knots from the west, pushing them toward Cape Leeuwin, Australia's southwestern tip, some 200 miles away. Jack adjusted the autopilot to a course of 135 degrees, checked the GPS, 46 degrees, 110 degrees, and logged the position in the chart. The Southern Ocean's vastness was both humbling and relentless, its waves a constant reminder of nature's indifference. Yet, with Luna's steady presence, Jack felt anchored, even in this wild expanse. The days blurred into a rhythm of sail checks, weather updates, and brief naps. Jack monitored the barometer, noting a slight rise, a sign the worst of the low-pressure systems might be behind them. He kept the sails reefed, the boat's speed steady at 6 knots to avoid stressing the patched forestay. Luna adapted to the rolling deck, bracing herself with practiced ease, though she'd occasionally nudged Jack's leg, demanding a scratch or a toss of her knotted rope. He obliged when he could, her playfulness a spark of light in the gray monotony. At night, under a canopy of stars, Jack would sit in the cockpit, sipping tea, Luna curled against him, her warmth cutting through the chill. He'd talk to her about the route ahead, the Indian Ocean's challenges, and the distant promise of Cape Horn. She'd tilt her head as if understanding, her loyalty unwavering. Cape Leeuwin appeared after 10 days, its lighthouse a faint beacon through the mist. Jack navigated the rocky approaches carefully, the Furuno radar painting the coastline on the screen. He anchored in a sheltered bay near Augusta, dropping the 45-pound CQR anchor with 100 feet of chain to hold against the swell. Luna bounded onto the foredeck, tail wagging, eager for land. Jack rowed them ashore in the dinghy, her life jacket still on, and they walked along a wind-swept beach, Luna chasing gulls and splashing in the shallows. The stop was brief, 2 days to repair the forestay properly, using a spare fitting from the boat's stores and tensioning it with a hydraulic adjuster. He also restocked fresh water and checked the engine, changing the fuel filter to ensure reliability for the Indian Ocean leg. The Indian Ocean crossing began with fair winds, a 15-knot southeasterly, pushing the Horizon Chaser at a comfortable 7 knots. Jack set the Genoa and mainsail on a broad reach, the boat's motion smooth as it rode the long swells. He checked the weather daily via the sat phone, downloading GRIB files that showed a stable high-pressure system ahead. But the Indian Ocean was notorious for sudden gales, and Jack stayed cautious, keeping the storm jib ready and the drogue stowed near the transom. Luna seemed to sense the shift in mood, sticking closer during his deck checks, her nose pressed against his hand as he adjusted the vang or tightened a sheet. Halfway to Mauritius, a mechanical issue surfaced. The alternator began undercharging, the battery voltage dropping to 11.8 volts. Jack cursed, knowing a dead battery could knock out the autopilot and navigation systems. He switched to the backup battery bank, then dug into the engine compartment, Luna watching from the companionway. The alternator belt was frayed, slipping on the pulley. He replaced it with a spare, tightened the tension, and tested the output. 14.2 volts, steady. Relief washed over him, and he tossed Luna a treat. "You're my lucky charm, girl," she crunched happily, oblivious to the crisis averted. Mauritius was a brief respite, a lush island of turquoise lagoons and bustling markets. Jack anchored off Port Louis, cleared customs, and restocked provisions, including fresh fish for himself and extra kibble for Luna. He let her run on a quiet beach, her joy infectious as she dug in the sand. Locals admired the Horizon Chaser, asking about the journey, and Jack shared stories of the Southern Ocean, Luna always at his side. He checked the hull for barnacles, scraped a few off the rudder, and inspected the seacocks, ensuring they were free of corrosion. The next leg to Cape Town meant rounding the Cape of Good Hope, another notorious stretch of water. The passage to South Africa was grueling. A cold front brought 35-knot winds and 12-foot seas, forcing Jack to reef the mainsail to the third point and switch to the storm jib. The Horizon Chaser pitched violently, spray soaking the deck. Jack clipped his harness to the jackline, moving deliberately as he adjusted the autopilot to keep the boat quartering the waves. Luna stayed below, her bed wedged against the saloon table, but her anxious whines cut through the storm's roar. Jack called to her, "We've got this, Luna," and she quieted, trusting his voice. The front passed after 48 hours, leaving a bruised sky and calmer seas. Jack shook his head, marveling at their resilience. "You're tougher than me, girl," he told Luna, scratching her ears. Cape Town's Table Mountain rose like a sentinel. As Jack approached, he docked at the V&A waterfront, the marina alive with yachts and tourists. The stop was longer, 5 days, to overhaul the rigging and replace a worn halyard. Jack took Luna on hikes, her energy boundless, and they shared quiet evenings in the cockpit watching the sunset. The final major leg loomed, the Atlantic, then Cape Horn, the sailor's ultimate test. Jack studied weather charts, waiting for a window to cross the Drake Passage. He reinforced the boat systems, double-checking the bilge pumps and stowing. Extra lines for emergencies. The South Atlantic was deceptively calm at first, with 10-knot winds and gentle swells. Jack set the spinnaker, the boat gliding at 8 knots. Luna lounged in the cockpit, her nose twitching at the sea air. But as they neared Cape Horn, the weather turned. A low-pressure system spun up, bringing 40-knot winds and 20-foot waves. Jack struck the spinnaker, reefed the mainsail, and deployed the storm jib. The boat's motion violent but controlled. He trailed a drogue to stabilize the stern, reducing the risk of broaching. Luna stayed below, her eyes wide but calm, as if sensing Jack's focus. He stood watch for 36 hours, steering manually when the autopilot struggled, his hands numb on the wheel. Cape Horn appeared through the mist, its jagged cliffs a stark warning. Jack rounded it at 56 degrees, the wind howling at 45 knots. He shouted into the gale, a mix of triumph and relief, and Luna barked, her voice joining his. The Horizon Chaser held steady, the repaired Forestay unyielding. As they cleared the Horn, the seas began to ease, the wind dropping to 20 knots. Jack collapsed in the cockpit, Luna climbing onto his lap, her warmth grounding him. "We did it, girl," he whispered, tears mixing with the salt on his face. The final leg up the Atlantic was a long slog, 6,000 miles to A Coruña. Jack battled fatigue, rotating 4-hour watches with brief naps. Luna's routine kept him grounded, her meals, her playtime, her quiet companionship. He navigated by GPS and sextant, the stars, a reliable guide when clouds parted. Squalls hit intermittently, but none matched the Southern Ocean's fury. Jack reflected on the journey, the moments of terror and beauty, the albatrosses gliding. Over the Southern Ocean, the phosphorescent trails in the Pacific, Luna's unwavering trust. He jotted notes for a book, the words flowing as easily as the miles. A Coruña's harbor came into view on a crisp June morning 2026, 10 months after their departure. Jack lowered the sails, motored in, and tied up at the marina, the same dock where it all began. A small crowd gathered, friends, fellow sailors, curious locals, cheering as he stepped ashore, Luna at his side. He knelt, hugging her, her tail wagging furiously. "We made it, Luna." The journey had changed him, stripping away doubt, revealing a resilience he hadn't known he possessed. Luna, too, seemed different, calmer, wiser, as if she'd understood the stakes all along. That evening, Jack sat in the cockpit, a beer in hand. Luna sprawled across his feet. He looked out at the horizon, already imagining the next adventure, a wise coastal cruise perhaps, or a book to share their story. The Horizon Chaser rocked gently, its rigging singing in the breeze. Jack scratched Luna's ears, her eyes half closed in contentment. The sea had tested them, shaped them, bound them. Whatever came next, they'd face it together, man and dog chasing horizons forever.